Hello and welcome to the Secret Place podcast where we do a real talk in faith and life, one truth at a time. I'm your host Priyanka Kote. I'm so glad that you're tuning in. We believe that the word that we are discussing here and the truth that we are speaking here is truly making an impact in all of your lives and it is falling on the good ground and definitely bring forth a great harvest for the kingdom of God. So as we bring every guest every week, today we have a very special guest in our show right now, his brother Reinhard Komanapalli. He's a leader, visionary, and a mentor, and who's carrying a heart of raising leaders with the kingdom values. So, without a delay, let me invite Brother Reinhard Komanapalli to the broadcast. Hello, Anna.
Thank you, Priyanka.
We
Thanks for
invite
having me
you.
on the show.
We invite you to the show, and we are so happy and glad that thank you for accepting our invitation first. And
Absolutely,
it's a joy that you have with us, Anna.
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, without a delay, let's go to the wonderful conversation that we're going to have. So, before that, if you can share with us what is the Mighty Dream and what is the table?
Yeah, sure. The Mighty Dream is a faith-based leadership organization. Our vision is to see a generation of people answer the call of leadership on their lives, and our mission is to create experiences and platforms for young people to answer the call of leadership on their lives. I believe to the core of my being that leadership is not a destination, it's not a position, or it's not a role, but leadership is a call. Leadership is not even the journey. It's the reason why we're on the journey, because it's the call of God upon our lives. And I believe that the more people that answer that call of leadership on our lives, the fabric of our country will not be the same anymore. The fabric of our nations will not be the same anymore. I believe the reason why we started the Mighty Dream, because we saw generation after generation being lost without a sense of purpose. I believe that the reason why Gen Z is called the lost generation is because they have no sense of purpose. And I believe that if they get that sense of purpose from God, then you answer the call of leadership on their lives, then it is finding that purpose and call upon your life. And that's how you get to lead.
Wow, wow, that's so awesome. Because everybody, as you said, everybody should answer the call of God. So, is it necessary that only the group of people or few people electively selected for the leadership? Or
Not at all. You know, the Bible says many are called, but the chosen are few. The chosen are the ones who actually answered the call. So it's not that certain people have been predestined for leadership and the other ones have not. If you see in the Old Testament, there's a very distinct kingly calling, there's a very distinct priestly calling. But if you see in the New Testament, there's no reference to that. There is, however, Apostle Paul refers to all of us as believers as soldiers in the army of God, and it's that call to be a soldier which is the call to be a leader. And I believe that there's nobody who epitomizes leadership like a soldier. A soldier is somebody who is willing to lay their life down not just on the line, but actually lay it down unto the point of death for the sake of a perfect stranger, for somebody who they've never met or somebody they've never going to meet in the future. So that's the heart of a leader. A leader, Jesus also paved the way for us, and he said, "I did not come to be served, but to serve." So that's the heart of a soldier. That's the heart of a leader.
yes, yes. So, as you said, servanthood is a principle that we should follow as a leader. So, according to you, how do you define leadership, Anna?
Leadership is a call, nothing more, nothing less. To me, I think I have struggled with defining what leadership is, and there's so many things that you can kind of aspire to be as a leader. But I think what it comes down to is whatever you do, whatever you're leading in, it has to be a call. So if your leadership itself is a call that you answer from God, then everything you do as a leader comes out of that call, which is I think what God wants you to do and what God has designed for you to do in this life.
Yes. So, the aspect of influencing in the process of leadership. So, how we both link, because when we think about leadership, there is a leader and there are also a group of people who follow the leader. So, how do we select that this group is the one that I'm called to serve?
So here's the thing. That's why we want to redefine what leadership is because there's not one leader leading and the other group following. Of course, there are settings in which there is one person that has the responsibility of the majority of people, and I think in a society that we live in, I think that is the way to go forward. There is always going to be less leaders and there's going to be more followers. But however, I don't think that we need to confine ourselves as believers to the same principles or to the same rules that apply to the world. I believe so. The kingdom of God is the only place where everyone can be wealthy. The laws of economics cannot accommodate everybody being wealthy in the world. The laws of economics don't. But so the laws of leadership also in the world don't accommodate for everyone to lead in their own space. Now, how successful you are and how famous you become and all of those things are many many factors that that come into who goes first and who goes last and all that stuff. And there's an honor system that's built into how we honor leaders and stuff like that. But I believe leadership is about taking initiative. Leadership is about leading by example. Leadership is about being a man or woman of character and integrity. What you say is let your yes be yes and your no be no. So I think there are certain things that you can do as a believer that will set you apart as a leader. So you don't have to have a position where people are following you. How are you leading yourself? If that's the question that anybody can ask themselves, how am I leading myself? Am I leading myself in a good way when nobody's watching? When am I leading myself in a bad way when nobody's watching? Because I believe that if you get to the crux of it, there is no point in your life where nobody's watching. There's always somebody watching, and so once you get that into your head, once you understand that fully, you understand that everything you do matters, whether it's behind closed doors or whether it's behind, uh, um, in a so-called secret place. Somebody's watching. God is watching. Um, so as a leader, how do you come to grips with that? You understand that, hey, God has called me to be in this position, and so I'm going to do the best that I can to execute what God has designed for me to do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
recognizing and acknowledging the call of God in our life. So that's what it starts identifying ourselves as a leader, as you say. So, according to you, like, I cannot ask what is the right age or what is a a time zone we can call in everybody's life that you can find out
I'm
yourself.
going to answer this three ways because I think most of us are caught up with this age that the world has given us, 18 and 21. 18 is when you become a valid adult, and so a lot of people think that when you reach the age of 18, then you start becoming serious about your life. Some people say it's 21 because that's the age when young people will start to drink, and then you can start really making your own choices, and it's the age. But in the Jewish culture, the age of accountability is 12. And so boys are raised to have not full stock, but for the most part, they're raised to have be accountable to somebody by the age of 12. And I'm not saying that that has anything to do with it. We see that in the Bible, Samuel was a very very young child when he received the call of God. He wasn't even. I don't believe that he was even a teenager. I think he was even younger than that.
Sorry to interrupt, Anil.
Yeah,
There was a king that who was chosen, Josiah, King Josiah. I think he was chosen to be a king at the age of 8.
yeah,
So that always intrigues me, like how
yeah,
God select.
yeah. But here's the thing: there is no age. I believe that before you were formed in your mother's womb, God had a plan for you. Jeremiah 29 says that God had plans for you, plans to prosper you, and give you a hope and a future. And so those things are predestined before you are even born, before you are even a thought in your mother and father's mind. God had a plan for you. God knew that you were born for such a time as this. So when you add all of these scriptures together, you actually understand and get a grip of what God was thinking about you before you were even formed, before you had a spirit, you had a soul and a body. Before that was even manifested in on this earth, God had a plan for you, and so that plan predates your physical birth, and so you can start on your discovery of your calling from day one. So I have two kids at home. I have a baby boy and a baby girl, and so the way that we raise them is fully aware that God has called them. We don't raise them in the way that, hey, you have to figure out what you want to do. You have to find out what your passions are. No, in life they're going to be interested in many things. Kids are going to be curious and they're going to find themselves interested in many things. But I believe at the core of who they are, if they know that they were designed for a purpose, that their design has an ultimate designer, and so you have to function in the design to which you were created to function. And so if you lay that foundation down, then very quickly you will understand that, hey, this is my call. as a human being, as somebody who's going to spend a little bit of time on this earth, this is what I'm here to do. And so, as children, when you understand that, God takes you through a very, very different, like everybody has a different journey. For me, my personal journey has been one of discovery. I am 37 years now, and I've only come into so-called full-time ministry by the world standard at about maybe 34, 35. And so for the first 30 plus years of my life, from an outsider looking in, I looked like I was lost and I was wandering. But God knew exactly where He was taking me. And so we confuse the call of God with the will of God and with the journey that God has. The journey that God has for us is very different from one person to the next. And we sort of like to compare our journey with somebody else's journey. And I think that's where we lose the plot, because God did not plan the same journey for everybody. You see throughout the Bible, not one single person had an identical journey as the other one. And so I believe that we need to embrace our own journey, and our call and our purposes in life take us on a unique journey. For example, if you take Joseph, for example, he had a very, very unique journey. You take Joshua, for example, very unique journey. There were some people that came under the leadership of somebody else, but there were some people who did not have a blueprint to follow. For example, Joseph being, God gave him a dream, and then immediately he was cast out into the pit, and then sold into slavery, and then went to prison. And that's a journey that cannot be replicated. A lot of times we try to compare ourselves with somebody, and we try to not just match the journey and the outcome. What we try to do is create the outcome that God planned for someone else, that God may have not planned for you. But God has a unique plan for you. God has a unique strategy for your life, and God has a unique wisdom that is hidden away for you, not from you, but for you. And I believe that as human beings, we tap into that wisdom, we tap into that love, we tap into that grace that God has provided for us. Then our journey begins to unravel. Then I believe that the influence that we actually have is an organic influence, that we don't create an influence for ourselves, but that our life becomes influential on its own. Yeah.
Oh, that's so powerful, Anna. So as you said, like I caught two things. Number one is like there's a period that you said you identify yourself that this is what God is asking me to do, or this is what that God has decided me, and identify like how to acknowledge it, how to recognize ourselves that it is like knowing that purpose or knowing that passion. So what are the practical ways to understand? And second thing is, as you said, like we need to create this culture, or we need to start this culture from our home. As you give the examples of your kids, what is the role of the family, and then we are going to the church, and then the group of people that we mingle with. So what is their role, and what is our role?
Um, okay, I'm going to answer this. This might be a little off, but the most practical thing you can do is be willing and obedient. The Bible says, if you are willing and obedient, you will eat the good of the land. And so, from the first time, speaking of the mighty dream, from the first time I actually put something down on a piece of paper, and then I took a picture of it on my phone. I still have that picture. From the first time, it was somewhere in August of 2013. 2013, yeah. From that time to the first opportunity that I had to do something about it was 9 years later. Was in 2022. And so, in this waiting time, which sometimes felt like wasting time, but in this waiting time, what I did was stay faithful to the things that were there in my courtyard, in the things that were there within my grasp. And so I stayed faithful in church. I stayed faithful with the help that I was doing with my dad's ministry, my brother's ministry. I stayed faithful in those things. For a very, very long time, I was behind the scenes. I was the guy who did all the production stuff. I was in charge of all the vendor management for both my brother and my dad, and some other people, some other ministries as well. So I would connect people. I would get in touch with vendors and get things done. I was the guy who was approached when things were not moving. And so I took over when things were not moving. I would usually get things done. I had a way of getting things finished, getting things done. And so there was a time where I was starting to not be as successful at that. And so that grace that was there for a very long time started to leave. And that's when I knew, okay, there was a shift coming in my life, and okay, I need to see, I need to be sensitive to the changes that are coming. So I started I started saying, okay, God, where's the opportunity? Where's the door? If we constantly like to look for signs as Christians, even though we're not supposed to do that. I started looking for a sign. I started, and then I saw the signs. I saw that God was bringing about a change in not just my life, but just in the way that everything was. I was processing everything, and so then my dad came to me and said, "Listen, I need you to put an event together. It's for business people mostly, and I have somebody coming in from Africa, and so we're going to have just about 100 people. It's going to be a paid event." And so I put that event together. So I wasn't in behind the scenes anymore. I was the one who was greeting people. I was the one who was introducing the speaker. I was the MC of the event. So for the first time, I was in front of the camera and not behind the camera. First time, I had the mic in my hand instead of giving the mic to someone else. And so between those 2 points, it was 9 years. And so it did not, for me, I was just so caught up with just being faithful to what I was supposed to do and what I could do. I did not feel like I was just sitting there waiting for God to move. And so I believe, as a generation of people that are waiting on God, I want to say that God is waiting on us. It's not the other way around. It's not the other way around. Waiting on God has been so um, miscommunicated to our generation. And it's mostly cautious church mothers that have preached this. Oh, you have to be careful. You have to know exactly where you're going before you start going. And we don't see that in the scripture. We don't see that level of caution in the scripture. And so even with caring for what comes tomorrow, God says don't care about that. And so we've been given a theology that goes so crosswise with the Word of God, that we're supposed to be pioneers. We're supposed to be people that step out on faith. We are supposed to be water walkers, and yet we are so comfortable on the boat of religion that we find ourselves in the boat of religion, always constantly frustrated, wanting to walk on water because that's what we were designed to do. And yet we stay in the boat because there's so many people who are preaching caution and not faith. Yeah. And so I believe when it comes to full circle about accomplishing the very thing that God has assigned for us to do in this lifetime, I believe it comes as we are prepared to step out, as we are prepared to walk by faith and not by sight, and to accomplish things that we think are impossible. But with God, it's not impossible. It's actually very, very possible. All you have to do is stick to the program that God has. And I think I've kind of walked away from the actual question, but that's how I see it. That's how I see it. I think we approach God with too much caution. And for a Heavenly Father that loves us, I think we can dial it down on the caution. Yeah.
Yes. So the faith actually it matters.
Absolutely.
Faith actually matters, and
Absolutely.
as you said, being faithful to the things that are already there in our lives. It could be a serving your own family or serving the church that you're already in.
Yeah.
There are the platforms actually help you to realize who you are and find out your own
Right.
purpose.
And meanwhile, it wasn't like I was not doing anything. I was building my business. I had multiple streams of income. I was doing all of that. I was not just sitting there and saying, "Oh, dad's money is going to come at some point, or some other money is going to come." No, I worked from the time I was 17 years old. We started our first business, and so we bought and sold a lot of things and created arbitrage that way. And I have constantly been in the world of business trying to do something or the other. And so God has given me that grace to be in the world of business, to communicate and do life with a lot of people that are in the business world. And so there are things that God would have given to you or anybody who's listening to this podcast, and you have to look out for those things. You have to be sensitive to the things that God already has provided. So because the Bible says all things pertaining to life and godliness have already been given to us. And so what is pertaining to my life that I'm missing that God has already given? If you start asking the right questions, most of the time the answers already are there. And so I think we need to begin with the right questions so we end up with the right answers. Yeah.
Yes, so it's beautiful because from the creation we can see that God already provided the Garden of Eden. Then He made the
Yeah.
man and woman.
Yeah.
So before He gives vision to us, He already made the provision. So
Absolutely.
coming to the vision and the purpose and passion, like in the process of knowing them and getting them to know. So what are some of the skills or the traits a leader should have?
Mm. So I'm going to go internal first and then go external. Internally, I think, again, willing and obedient. You have to have the spirit of faith. You, as a leader, you must go. Last year we had a conference, and Mr. Vusi, he had a definition of what leadership is. Leaders are supposed to go into the trenches of the future and invite people to come and live there. And so you have to be able to see the future. You must be able to not predict the future, but see it. See a future, not see the future, but see a future. See a possibility. See a version of the truth, or see the version of the world where others are not able to see it. And so when you become a leader, you can start leading people in that direction. So I'll give you an example. When in hundreds of years ago, when slavery was legal, somebody had to see a world where every human being was treated equally under the law, under the eyes of the law. They had to envision this world where everybody had the same freedom and same liberty that you and I have. So in India, it's the caste system. You know, somebody had to envision a world where caste um, plays no role in the life of a human being. Sadly, we're not there yet, but somebody had to envision that. Somebody had to look at that and say that could be a possibility, so I'm going to go towards that. And so you see a lot of people on YouTube who are preaching about this, and you know, they're leading the conversation. But again, on the other side, you see a lot of people leading the conversation towards more caste control and towards more so-called freebies for minorities and majorities and all of this stuff. How about we just cancel it all? You know, how about we start thinking in a completely different line of thought? And so I think you ought to be able to, and sorry, I think I went straight up um, internal before I went external. But externally, you must have communication. You must be able to communicate your vision. I think you should be able to be a good listener, because if you don't get feedback from your people, sometimes you will have gone out and you think people are following you, but you're just going out for a walk because there's nobody behind you. And so I think from a worldly standpoint, there are skills that you must manage, that skills much that you must master, and that's communication. I think is one of the largest or biggest things. The ability to bear pain as a leader, because when you grow, there's pain, and so there is no such thing as a pain-free growth. There's no such thing as a pain-free life. There's no such thing. However, the Bible promises us victory in every circumstance. So to me, you always live with hope. You always live with hope. You never have a chance to say, "Oh my God, my life is so tough." Yeah, it's tough, but you have to just go, keep going. So the victory is yours. The victory is already yours. So just toughen up. So I think as a leader, you ought to be tough. You ought to be tough. And you know, they say tough times don't last, tough people do. And so you got to be tough. Tough times will always come. Tough times will always go. Good times will always come. Good times will always go. Everything, nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary. And so focus on the eternal stuff, because God has already promised you victory. God has already promised you a life of purpose, a life of faith, a life of grace. He's actually graced us to do the things that we have to believe by faith. So half the work is already done. All you have to do is sit and believe and receive it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. Because internally and externally, when we look into the character building and all, it applies to both nature and nurture. Like, you know, how we are growing up and how the environment that we are growing in, also like the church or the people that are connected to us. So in the process of that, you know, as we step into the leadership, like as you said, you know, whatever we have discussed till now as a summary, like we have to identify ourselves by allowing God to show us, at the same time seeing the vision, not like where or what kind of people that I'm going to lead, but having that vision of, as you said, the example of the caste system. Like somebody has to envision the thing that something is to be done in the future. So during the process of this leadership, like identifying ourselves as a leader, or you know, we are leading or influencing group of people. So there are always people who come up with different mentalities. Like not everybody is the same. Like if I have a position of uh, as a teacher, like for example, I'm working as a teacher in a college. Like I usually speak to almost 70 to 80 people every day. So there are 70 to 80 people every day are not the same. There are different mentalities and different backgrounds. So when I am talking to them, uh, how am I going to envision them? Like they should come to a common point of understanding. Because when we come to the vision, or when we are running particular a group of organization, it is very important to have, I mean, to see the same vision by everybody. Like everybody should see the same vision. So, how we need to cultivate the vision that we have to the group of people that are, you know, are there or with us.
So honestly, 70 to 80 people is a lot. I'll tell you what I did with my team. Um, when you have a vision, when you see a version of the future that you want people to walk with you, I would take. So I'm assuming in a group of 70 people. Yes, actually, I can give you another example. Okay, so one is you lead by example, and the way you do that, and strategically, what you can do is you take the person who is the most unlikely to buy into your vision, and you get them to buy into your vision, and everybody else will follow. You take the hardest person who you have to convince, and you convince them, and then everybody else becomes an easy target.
Yeah.
That's strategically what you can do. But I think not everybody's going to buy it.
Mm.
I think that's an ideal state, but I don't think everybody's going to buy in. Not everybody's going to see the vision. There's going to be people on your team who are part of the team because either because of a paycheck or either because something else, but they're not there because of the vision. You just have to keep going. You just have to keep pressing. And there are going to be people who walk in and walk out of that vision. And so that's all part of life. But here's my 2 cents on it. I believe that when you actually lead a group of people, they have to see the value of following you. So I'll give you an example. So we have a group of schools in Maharashtra that we own and operate, and so my team actually is the one that runs all of the operations and academics and all of that stuff. And so when COVID came, it was March 19th, 2020. We the whole place shut down. Somewhere around maybe April or so, my family decided, hey, we're going to take communion as a family, and we're going to make sure that this disease doesn't come affect us. And so we stood on the word, we took communion, and I had a small thought. I was like, hey, I want to invite people to do this with us. And so I got on a Zoom call with my staff who are predominantly unbelievers. Predominantly have no they've got no idea of what communion is and all of that stuff. But I said, hey, we're doing this as a family, and I want each and every one of you to not take part in the communion, but um, I explained to them how communion works and how we take part of the healing that's already available. And I said, I told them this is what we're praying for, this is what we're doing, and so we are praying for you, all of that stuff. I shared with them what we are doing as a family, and I said, as I stand in the gap for my family, I'm going to stand in the gap for your families as well. So throughout that entire time when we had shutdowns and lockdowns and all of this stuff, and people were dying left, right, and center, we did not have one single death on our campuses. Not a single death, not a single COVID related death, not a single death period. No death whatsoever, not in our staff, not in their immediate families. And so that's setting the tone. And so all of a sudden I had everybody's attention. All of a sudden, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, when it was mentioned, people are, oh my God, yeah, I don't believe in the same God he does, but something worked. You see what I'm saying? And so results speak. And so when as a leader you want people to follow you, you make sure you show results. You show the fruit of who you are, and let people eat of the fruit of who you are. Let them actually partake in the same results as you partake, even without them doing the work. Now, nobody actually broke bread and drank the wine. You see what I'm saying? But I was able to intercede on their behalf. A leader will always intercede. A leader will also always, absolutely, absolutely. And yet, to this day, some of them still don't have an idea. But there's a wall of protection around their lives because there's a wall of protection over my life. Yeah.
That's so powerful, because that the single incident, what you it looks so, of course, because they do not understand. Even Bible says, like, the minus things and the foolish things, God reveals the greatest mystery out of it. And definitely the results that we show and the fruit that we are producing definitely make an impact, and they obviously follow at the end of the day. So thank you for the advice, Anna. So as we are moving on in the aspect of leadership internally, like when we have a small group of people and in the same different mentalities they come, so there is always a chance of having conflicts among themselves, and they come to us. So with your personal experience, like how do you actually deal with those conflicts among the team that you're leading, and how you help them to grow at the same time to continue with the same vision?
Absolutely. Um, a very great example was set by my parents. When my brother and I used to get into tiffs and we had conflict, they would just let it play out. Very seldom did they get involved and start to sort things out. At the end of the day, a team will sort itself out. You have to trust those people. Now, if somebody is ruining the chemistry of the team, if somebody is like actually like, I'm assuming as a leader that you hire well, that you hire good people on your team. But there's always going to be somebody who's going to be causing problems. And for that, you just have to, you have to know if that person belongs there or not. For example, I had a member of my team that was a little problematic in his early days. Just not able to communicate, just not able to see. However, what I did was I just kind of stepped back a little bit and not get involved as much. And so there was another person on the team who started mentoring him and said, "Hey, this is not how you handle this. I'd like for you to handle it a different way." And this is not somebody who was higher than him or lower than him. It was just a colleague. And so that had more of an effect than me stepping in. And I think conflict does not ruin anything. I think it reveals something. Conflict reveals. And so we should not, as believers, shy away from conflict, but actually look at what it's revealing. There's a root cause to conflict that has to be dealt with. And if we are able to deal with the root cause of conflict, I think you can actually, solve the conflict. You can resolve the conflict. Yeah.
Wow, yes. So conflicts are inevitable, of course.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the thing is actually how are we going to deal? As you said, having let them have a time.
Yeah.
Or the more we involve and try to micromanage things,
Yeah.
there's
It only gets worse.
yeah.
It only gets worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming to the people of calling themselves or leaders, or God has already chosen them as leaders. We like people also have challenges as they're growing up in the leadership. So when like it could be a personal life, or it could be that challenge is coming from a personal life, or from a family, or from the same organization that we're working. So how do we deal with those challenges in the process of our growth?
Deal with challenges knowing that victory is already yours.
Wow.
Deal with challenges knowing and have the humility to know that you may be wrong sometimes.
Mm.
When you face a challenge, if it's especially if it's an interpersonal challenge, if you are dealing with somebody, if
Yeah.
you're dealing with another face, another human being,
Yes.
just have the humility to know that sometimes you may be wrong.
Yeah.
You might be fully convinced that you may be right,
Yeah.
but you have to follow the spirit on this one. You have to know
Because
that you know that you know that you're right, and then you have to try to resolve it. The Bible says, "Speak the truth in love,"
mm,
and a lot of times we try to speak the truth.
miss
That's
the
it. And so speaking the truth in love, because sometimes the truth can be very harsh.
Yeah.
Truth can be like a slap on your face, somebody spitting in your face. If it's not handled well, it's the very truth that's supposed to set them free, shackles them forever.
Yeah.
If it's not handled in love,
Yes.
truth is one of those very potent things that is not handled the right way. It's like water. It's essential to life. But you have too much of water, you have a problem. You have too much water on the streets, you have a flooding problem.
Yes. Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And so too much of something can be a bad thing. However, I don't believe too much of truth can be a bad thing. But however, if the way truth comes in is very, very important. So if you're dealing with challenges in your life, my thing is, as a generation, I think we've gotten so professional at complaining. I would just say stop complaining. Just stop it. Just keep your mouth shut and keep it moving. Keep it moving. A lot of things that we call challenges are not really challenges. They're just little few setbacks. They're just obstacles in the way.
Yeah.
Learn how to. Life is a race, right? It's not supposed to be a rat race, but it is a race.
Race.
The Bible also says, "Run the race."
And the race. Yeah.
and run the race to win.
Yeah.
And so in life you will have obstacles, you will have other people competing with you, you will have, and life is not a is just a, is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it's a marathon with obstacles in the way. It's an obstacle course. And so you have to learn how to use obstacles to your advantage. Obstacles are placed not against you, but they are placed for you, because life happens for you, it doesn't happen to you. Life is actually something that happens for you, because the Bible says all things work together to them that are loved and called according to your purposes. So when I know the fact that I am loved, when I know the fact that I am called according to God's purposes, life is not happening to me, it's happening for me. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. And life is not something that is external. Life is something that flows internally out. you know Out of the heart flow all the issues of life. So life is actually coming in from the inside. So when obstacles and challenges are messing you up and things are not moving, look inward, not outward. Don't try to blame it on someone else, and don't try to blame yourself. Look inward as to what is not working. Use the wisdom of God. Jesus has been made to us wisdom. Along with salvation, he's made unto us wisdom. So use that wisdom to know what is going on internally. And so if you start to fix those things internally, what flows out of you will change. Life is like water. Depending on the shape of your heart, the life flows. If you have a good shape, then the water that flows out has a good shape. So it's always looking inward. I don't think life begins outwardly, it begins inwardly. And even correction begins inward. Blame begins inward. You don't have to sit there and point a finger at someone else. It is your life. Take full responsibility of it, take stock of it, and make sure that you are making the right choices for the life that you intend to have. Yeah.
Exactly, that's super, Anna. Because many people, most of the people, when I talk to them regarding identifying their purpose or knowing them, or at least, these are guys I told you, the students that I work with. Um, when I invite them to church, they say, I have something at home, or my parents are sick, I have this personal. And even in the early days of like when I started going to the hostels or colleges to teach, like every time that I plan to do something, there is something or the other that try to, stop me. And even the podcast, and when we started doing it, like almost all 4 episodes, I had severe cough. And the miracle is like whatever the podcast the time limit that we set for that 45 minutes or 1 hour, throughout the day I used to cough. Only that 45 minutes I used to be very quiet. So that is the miracle of God. So it is like, though the challenges are there, as you said, identifying ourselves, like what is a hard position, or looking into us, what's happening, and how do we see that challenges actually, are they becoming opportunities for us, and having that consistency of doing it definitely matters. So Anna, as we are speaking about the challenges and overcoming them, so I was talking to students in a regular class the other day, and I was discussing that when you become, once you finish this course, and of course you'll be doing a job or something like that, or if you want to start something new, and after some time, like you see that it is because initially any startup or anything that you're doing, you will see the growth, and after some time you may not be seeing the growth that you envisioned. So what do you do? I asked a question. So somebody said, we'll close up, we'll shut up, we'll shut off the thing, whatever the startup that we started. So when I think about the generation, whatever you mentioned, the Gen Z and all, so giving up is the element that they, carry with, I believe, or what I have seen. It's not like I believe, I'm sorry. It's what I have seen among the people. There are some strengths and weaknesses as a leader that we are not supposed to carry, we can say, because the examples that we have from the Bible. So according to you, what are the strengths that a leader should have, and especially the young generation who are growing up, for the benefit of all of us and all of them? And what are the weaknesses that we need to, see them? Like there's a SWOT analysis, no, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. Like how do we work on the weaknesses and making them to be the opportunities?
I believe, again, it goes back to design. I believe each of us are designed for the life that we're supposed to live. However, we also have choices. Um, um, Being physically strong is a choice. You're not born physically strong. You grow into your physical strength. And so, in the same way, I believe as you're growing, you will start putting on the things that you will need for the future. And that's a sign of growth. And so if you're constantly quitting, if your eye is always on the exit, and you always sit close to the exit, so the first sign of resistance or the first sign of persecution, you're out of the door, then that's not a great place to be in. You must, as a leader, you must be the last person to exit. The captain of a ship is the last person to exit the ship. And so, if you play by that rule, you're constantly put in a place where you're forced to look for other options rather than just quit. But also, it's a skill knowing when to quit. There are certain things that you should exit. There are certain A burning building is not something you should be staying inside. So there are certain things that you have to know and sense when your exit is. And once you get to that, I believe that once you get to that stage in wisdom, then you know the buildings that you're supposed to get out of. You know the buildings that you're supposed to get in. You know the meetings that you're supposed to stay in, and the ones that you're supposed to. Because you have the wisdom of God.
True, true. So as you said that we also should know that what is the time to be ourselves or to become starting something of our own. You know, like I heard somebody sharing this, like one of the pastor or one of the uh, person who is working under a pastor in a church, and he got blamed of something, and then he took a time and prayed and asked God what is going to happen. Then God revealed to him that this is the time for you to start something by your own. And now he grew up and he started a church and he started his own organization and all. So is it okay for us, because we think when we come to a place of we working under some leadership, is it okay to identify ourselves at certain point of time that we also can separate from them and go and start something, because this happens in our scenario, right, wherever we are working or wherever you're doing. Is it okay to leave?
This is a touchy subject. You're gonna get me in trouble. Um, yes, it's okay to leave. It's absolutely okay to leave. You have God's permission to leave, but you have to know when. When is the big question. That's when you really need the wisdom of God to know when. I believe in submission. I believe that when you are submitted to a pastor or a leader or man of God or whatever, that you don't leave when things get difficult. If there are differences in the way that you are going, I believe there are a lot of leaders um, that are not allowing people to exit fast enough. I think leaders are becoming hoarders of men, and we tend to gather a group of people, and we want them to just stay here. And so, as a leader, I think it's your responsibility to release other leaders. And so, I'm not going to answer the question for the side of the people who want to leave. I'm going to answer the question for the leaders who are not letting people leave. Um, there is an appointed time for everyone to live out the destiny that God has had planned for their lives. I believe as a leader, if you get in the middle of that, you are responsible to God as to why you have made somebody's life delayed. So, leadership, yes, you get twice the honor, but it's also twice the responsibility. But when the honor supersedes the responsibility, I don't believe you're an effective leader anymore. When you insist on getting the honor but not the but don't take up the responsibility. For example, I'm a leader. I have a few people reporting into me, and one of them wants to go, and one of them wants to start something new. And it's my insecurities that let me say, "Hey, boss, I'll increase your salary. I can make it. Can make life a lot better than better than you can actually imagine. I can do this. I can do that." And you are buying their loyalty with things or with some kind of thing. And at the end of the day, it's eroding it. You just don't see it. And there'll come a day when they will still be able to walk out because this is not something that is aligned with where their life is going. And I believe that as leaders, we need to know where people's lives are going, and we need to release them into the future. The future needs more leaders, and so you can't hold all of them together. I know so many pastors and leaders who have such a hard time. 30, 40, 50 years of ministry under their belt, but barely 5 people who they've blessed and released. Barely, barely. All of the exits from the church, they name it disgruntled people who've gone, or disgruntled pastors who have not submitted themselves and they have gone out when the time is wrong. But I don't believe that. I believe that you should always side on the side of releasing them more than you side on the side of keeping them together, keeping them in. You must always, because it's a life cycle, right? It's a life cycle. You bring somebody in, you train them, and you release them. And so immediately there is a reason, as there's a default expectation to replace them as well. So you have to constantly raise another person. And so something that I've told my team is, I believe that every single person is meant for greatness. Now you can say, now you can be meant for greatness within this organization, or you can be meant for greatness outside of this organization. What you should be doing is pursuing that greatness. You cannot be pursuing a career that says, okay, I'm just going to stay here as long as I want. God has not called us to be loyal to things that are not of His, that are not of Him. Okay, and so when there is a leader who is walking crosswise with how God is walking, or where God is moving, you must exit. You must walk out of that position. And I'm not talking about theological differences. I'm not talking about what does God have for your life. And even in the case of my family, I have seen how certain leaders could have been blessed and released in their time, and what ended up happening, because we gave them more comforts, we gave them more perks and all of this stuff. What ended up happening is it eroded their trust, eroded their faith, it eroded their dependency on God, and then increased their dependency on you. And so, as leaders, we have to watch out for that. It's very easy to fall into that trap. And so, for the people that have fallen into that trap, some people just can't imagine a life outside of that church, can't imagine a life outside. I don't think God has called us to one place for our entire lifetime. I don't think God has called everyone for that. There are people who live, they are birthed in a church, they die in that church, and that is the will of God for some people. I'm nothing against that. I have nothing against loyalty. In fact, I'm a person who's loyal to almost a fault. I'm very loyal. But I don't think we don't see references to loyalty in the scripture. So I am retraining and rewiring my brain to think differently about loyalty. And I think ultimately our loyalty must be to the King and His kingdom.
Of course, of course. So as long as there's a time, and as you said, integrity and loyalty definitely makes to be ourselves in faithfulness to the things that we are already doing. And when it comes to, as you said, I would have asked the right question, like what is the time for a leader to recognize somebody also has a calling in their lives and release them. So
The thing is, everybody does.
yeah,
We've been taught that leadership is only for a few people and ministry is only for a few people. Or no. The call of leadership is on every person's life. Every person must be released. Every person, no person must be held back from their destiny. Every person must be released into their destiny. And if their destiny lies with you, great. But if their destiny lies somewhere else, that's also great. That's also good. Because ultimately, the person who's given you that destiny is ultimately God. You only play a role in their life. You are not God in their life. You can represent God, but you are not God.
yes, true.
Yeah.
We can see the examples from the Bible also, like Moses and Joshua, how Joshua spent time, and Saul and David. Like there are many examples like that. Is wonderful. So as we come to the almost the closure of our podcast, would you like to share anything from your personal that at certain point of time that you felt it was very painful to you, and it is like we come to that stage of like I am going to give up on everything, but still you insisted yourself and you encouraged. Bible says in related to David encouraged himself. So what was a moment that you encouraged yourself, and that being a leader, sometimes we also should be self administrative, like we should set our rules and regulations, we should follow our own discipline. So what is the time that you decided yourself to not to give up and move on, so that whatever the growth that you are seeing right now is achieved?
I'll give you an example from just last week. Um, Last Tuesday, we were on our way to Chandigarh because Thursday we had a conference in Chandigarh. Tuesday night we had this conference. Tuesday night we had a meeting with our team, and my accounts guy came to me and said, "There's no way we can pay for Chandigarh. We're not there." And whatever money was supposed to come in, payments and all of this stuff didn't come in. I said, "Okay, it's gonna come in. Just keep an eye out." And I said, "Whatever you can pay, let's pay. Whatever you can get done, let's get it done." And so that's what he did. Wednesday evening at about 4 or 5 o'clock, we were in Chandigarh. My team was in Chandigarh. I was in Chandigarh, and we were just talking. And then I started talking to the team. I said, "Hey, this is kind of where we are, and but I believe that God is going to move, and I believe that we're going to do this conference fully paid for. We're not going to be in debt to anybody. We're not going to have any credit card bills or anything like that. Everything is going to be paid for by the time we get into the groove." And as I was saying this, my accounts guy gets a text saying that we just received the money
Wow.
to do the conference, not just in Chandigarh but also in Delhi, and close out the entire tour.
Wow. Wow.
So um, what looked like an impossible task wasn't impossible to even to begin with. And so we started off this tour without having the money to finish the tour.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And you covered almost 10
we
states?
we covered not 10 states but 10 cities. We did 14 events in 10 cities, and we covered it all. We finished everything. Not a bill that was left unpaid. Not a vendor that was left unpaid. On the midnight of the 23rd, everybody was paid. We finished our tour. We paid everybody on time. Not a single person left waiting for payment, and we came back. And the surprising thing was that we wanted to fly the entire team back home. And so everybody got a chance to fly back home. Instead of sitting in a train for 27 hours, we flew back in about 2 hours. And so it is a walk of faith. This whole thing is a walk of faith. It's impossible to please God without faith. So there is this massive requirement for people to walk in faith, that we are known for our exploits by faith. And if every leader embraces that, the journey of faith that is placed before them, man, I'm telling you, the world is going to be upside down by the time we're done with it. And on the way back from Delhi, we were flying out of Delhi. And in the past 20, 30 plus years that I've been flying, we've been taking maybe thousands of flights. And this was probably one of the roughest flights that I've been on. And I'm a person who enjoys, um, no, I enjoy turbulence. When I'm flying, I enjoy turbulence. It's something that I enjoy. It's just something that I enjoyed as a child, and just kind of went with me. And so I enjoy turbulence. But this time was different. Right before we walked into the flight, so my one of my team members was actually taking a video. So he said, "Anna, what I want us to say is 10 cities done, 0 more to go." So for every city we did 3 done, 7 more to go, six done, 4 more to go, something like that. And so for this we wanted to say 10 done, 0 to go. And one of the team members, I think it was a very prophetic moment, uh, came and basically said, "Hey, listen, let's not do 0 to go. 10 cities done, many more to go." And it was a statement of faith. It was a statement of faith. And so we did the video. We got into the flight, and here it is. The flight was one of the roughest things ever. And in my mind, and this is the first time I'm actually kind of getting nervous. I was like, "What is going on? Why is the plane jumping up and down like this?" And we're not on the road. It's not like we're on some of these, you know, very horrible roads that we have, after this rainy season. But it just felt like it was just bumpy. It was just bumpy and bumpy and bumpy. And then I closed my eyes to begin to pray, right? And I could sense this. I could sense the enemy just having that sleazy um, smile, smuck smile on his face, saying, "You said many more to go, right? I'll see how many more." I just felt. I'm not saying I saw the devil. I saw the Satan. I just felt that presence. And I just closed my eyes with a smile on my face. I said, peace be still. And that's it. I didn't pray, God, please protect us. God, please do. I didn't do it. I just said, peace be still. And the plane did not move once after I said that. And we landed, and it was one of the smoothest landings. We got out, and the team was all smiling. So when the flights finally stabilized, I went to every single person. I said, "Is everybody okay?" So we were all scattered throughout the flight. We had somebody sitting in row 8. We had somebody sitting in row 27. And so all the way from 8 to 27, I asked everybody. We are about 13 people who were traveling. And so I asked every single person, hey, are you okay? Are you good? And everybody had a smile on their face. And God gave everybody that peace to pass through that storm. And so when the world stacks up a few things against you, don't panic. Don't panic. The same thing with I was telling you about the conference coming up on November 1st. It's called Pioneer again. And we don't have the money to do it. Absolutely don't have the money in the account to do it, but we will get it done. And so at the end of the day, how many? It's not. It says you have to take a. Some people say we have to take a risk for God. It's not a risk when you do it for God. It's a guarantee when you do it for God. It's not a risk. And so with that, I want to leave with the people with saying there is a journey ahead of you that requires all of your faith. That's the journey you should be going on. Not the one that takes the least amount of faith, but it takes all of your faith. It takes all of who you are. It takes all of your skill. It takes all of your heart. It takes all of your strength. It takes all of your mind. That's the journey you should be going on.
Yes, because all of, like, even Jesus says that you should worship me with all of your heart
Yeah.
strength. So whatever we are doing, we are worshiping.
Yeah.
It is a response that we are giving for all the blessing that He has given to us.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing the personal journey. And at the end, like, what is the cost of being a leader, or what is the cost that we need to pay, or sacrifices that you think that should be?
If you want to be a good one, the cost is everything.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah. Cost is everything. It costs you your life. It'll cost you your life.
Yeah, of course. It includes the time, all the risk.
Everything. It will cost you your life. And something that a hero of mine says, the cost of a failed life and the cost of a successful life is the same. It's your life.
True.
So make sure you are spending it on something worthy.
Yes, because it brings back to the definition which you gave, like being a leader is laying your life.
Yeah.
So definitely it costs everything. So if I can ask you, who are the leaders that you would look up to?
There's so many of them. There's so many of them. I believe that God has raised such an amazing generation in our previous generation. Some such amazing leaders in our previous generation. So many people who have gone the way, showed the way, and did things that were thought to be impossible. So I look up to those people, and I find meaning, and I find inspiration from a lot of things. And I could be watching a show, and I will look at some of the things that the character is going through, and I will. So I take inspiration from some of the most mundane things as well. But if I was to pick some heroes, there's actually too many to mention, because if I mention some and don't mention the others,
Yeah. That's okay.
yeah,
That's okay. Because it is. I mean, the point
yeah,
is
there's
like
a lot of
everybody should have
yeah. I'm
a
grateful
mentor.
for the men and women of God has placed in my life. I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for the mistakes that they've made. I'm grateful for the things that they've done right, because it is the mistakes that they've made that helped me define what kind of leader I want to be.
Yeah.
When I've seen the lack of hospitality in some leaders, I chose to be a more hospitable leader. When I've seen some of the uh, some of the issues that some leaders have communicating their ideas and communicating the vision that they have, I wanted to be a person who could communicate well.
Yes.
And so when I saw some of the mistakes, I think it woke me up more than when things were going well. And so I want to thank all of those people who've played a tiny role in where I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, how important it is for a leader to have a mentor in life, like the role of mentorship or some.
I don't have one mentor. Life itself to me is a mentor. Um, I learn a lot from just living life and experiencing life and going through life. But I also observe a lot of things that everybody else does. Um, there are different things that I go to different people, different seasons. Now I always have my father to go back to. I always have my brother to go back to, who also is my pastor. Um, there are certain things, if I don't usually go and say, hey, brother, I'm struggling with something, can you please help me? That's usually not what I go. I go and ask questions, and I say, how would you deal with something like this? And they will give you their perspective on it. And sometimes it kind of pushes you in the right way, and sometimes it doesn't do anything. But if you're open, the right conversation will come. And if you keep talking to the right people, the right conversations will come. I have certain people who challenge me, and who I've got great friends. One of the things that I have, I feel like I'm very, very um, uh, passionate about, are the relationships that I have. And so I constantly pour into the people that are around me. And so when I need a glass of water, I always have a glass of water, because I'm constantly pouring into the lives of other people that are with me. So for example, if I need something done, somebody or the other will say, Anna, I'll get it done. Don't worry about it. And so it's not just the mentors who've gone the way, who kind of are ahead of me. It's the life is worth living because of the people I get to live it with.
Wow.
So yeah,
Awesome,
yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sharna, for all the wisdom that you poured in the
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you.
As you mentioned, you can give an announcement to the audience as an invitation about the November conference that you're doing, the Pioneer.
Yep.
You can tell all the viewers and the listeners, please, all of you can join the conference that is coming up. Why don't you say about it?
The conference is called Pioneer again. So what we want to do is get all kinds of creative leaders, all kinds of business leaders, ministry leaders, all kinds of leaders together in one room, and we want to challenge them to pioneer again. There was a time where we would pioneer, and I don't think we are living in that time anymore. So the challenge is to pioneer again. I think this is going to be one of the most amazing conferences that we've put together. We're going to be finalizing the venue in about a week or 10 days from now, and so we're going to be making that announcement. But you can follow us on social media. Our handle is themighty.dream. And you can, all of the information will be on the website and on our social media. So I'd like for each and every one of you who's hearing my voice to be able to come and witness what God is doing in our midst and through our generation.
Awesome, awesome. So all of you, please look into the pages and the websites that are provided in the description. Like, we will also put them on the description. So please go and visit them. And as Anna said, like, try to be there in the conference. Everybody that is watching this podcast. And thank you all. I hope that the podcast has blessed you and you receive the wisdom out of it. And may God bless you all. And even in the process of you becoming a leader, whatever that we have discussed will definitely will help you and impact your life to be a leader out there and impacting other lives too. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anna, for once again for all the wisdom. Thank you all. Until we see next time, keep loving us by liking and sharing and subscribing to our YouTube channel, and share to as many people as you know. God bless you.